Hi, everybody. Welcome. Lindsay, this is our third episode now, right? I'm losing track.
Yes. Hello, everyone.
This is our third episode of Verdict, the deconstruction of the verdict. Lindsay named it that, and I love it. We got a really special episode with really my all-star. If I could think of like a dream team lineup, this is who I'd have. Um, of course, I'm Attorney Davis of Davis Legal Center. I'll kind of turn it over to everybody so you can announce who you are.
I'll kick off. Hello, everyone. This is Attorney Andre McKinney Dorval with TCB Legacy Law. Our practice includes family-based humanitarian and removal and deportation defense. Pleased to be here.
And Attorney McKinney, do you offer or do you speak any language for those people that may?
I do. I am Haitian, so I do speak Haitian Creole, and we do have support staff that speak Spanish as well.
Awesome. And then whoever wants to go next.
And good afternoon. Glad to be here. It's Opal Lee from Flowjam Legal. I also practice humanitarian-based immigration, family removal, and I do a lot of waivers. And we also have an office in Jamaica, but we, of course, for immigration, it's nationwide.
And who's next?
Hi, everyone. I'm Carol Williams with Williams Immigration LLC. I'm an immigration attorney, and I work with a lot with companies that are looking to hire individuals that are not U.S. citizens, as well as family-based immigration.
And my name is Lindsay Chase. I do criminal defense, federal, state, appellate work, and I'm a managing partner at Serpoli Chase. Nice to speak with everyone.
And I just wanted to just kind of reiterate again. Well, I'll allow you, Attorney Williams, to do the blurb real fast. I'll turn it over to you.
So we're lawyers, so we have to say this, but we are all lawyers. We are here to help. We are here to offer some very good general information for you, but it is very important for you to know that we are not your specific lawyer, so we're not providing you with specific legal advice. If you would like to work with any of the fantastic legal minds on the screen, you should reach out to their offices individually. We all have different procedures for which you can become our lawyer, become our clients. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And then I'll have, whenever everyone gets an opportunity to, if you could just put your information in the comments. With that being said, let's hop right into it. Attorney Chase kind of been nudging this, and all of us have been dreading having these types of conversations, but there are a lot of things happening, especially with the new administration. So let's get into it. And anybody can jump in or hop in as you feel need to. Let's talk about, let's just talk about it. So what do you do if you've been arrested and you are not a United States citizen? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
So here's the thing. I think one of the things that we need to know, and this is important, I recently spoke with someone and they're like, you know what, I don't have any criminal record. I am not a criminal, so I'm not worried about anything that's going on here. That is wrong. That is so wrong, and that's far from the truth. Because what this administration has made it clear, and it is, that their press secretary has actually confirmed that it's now the official policy of the current administration that all undocumented immigrants are considered criminals. And so what that means, in answer to your question, is that you could have no criminal record at all. You could just be walking on the road. And of course, I'll let one of the criminal attorneys explain more about the right for you to be searched, your property to be searched. But what we're seeing is that people are going into, for example, even the stores, the corner stores, the supermarkets, and they've been asked for proof of their lawful status. And so the thing is that if you know you're not a United States citizen, and especially if you know that, or permanent resident, and you have been here for under 2 years, it's very critical that you remain silent. You don't speak. You tell them you need to speak with an attorney. Don't sign anything. Don't speak. Don't say anything. Maybe you shouldn't even have your passport with you. The reason being is because of this thing called expedited removal. So if you're here for under 2 years and you come into contact with ICE, and they find out that you've indeed been here for under 2 years, you could be taken and you could be removed forthwith without even a chance, of course, to speak with an immigration attorney. Of course, you can do a credible fear interview where you said, listen, I'm scared and I need to file an asylum. They may do a quick thing, but you really don't have that right. So they can go ahead and remove you. If you know, though, in my opinion, that you've been here for at least 2 years or more, and you don't have a removal order, that's the only time that I would tell my clients to chance explaining to them that they have been here for more than 2 years. So I would recommend having some documentation on your person, such as maybe proof that you had some USCIS receipts, maybe an I-94 showing that you really and truly were here prior to 2 or over 2 years, because this will secure that, you know what, at least if they take you into custody, you would get your chance. Due process, you will get your chance to go before an immigration judge, where you could go ahead and contact one of these lovely legal minds to go ahead and assist you.
Anybody else want to add it? I mean, Attorney Lee, you did our job. I don't know, Lindsay, do you want to add anything, or anybody else want to add to that?
I will say something too that I think is kind of important. Me and D'Amica, we do, our attorney Davis, we do criminal work, and we rely on our clients to communicate their immigration status. I do typically ask my client whether they're a U.S. citizen or not, but they actually need to be able to share more than that information with me. If they're, how long they've been here for, what type of visa they have, do they have family here, which country they're from originally, because all that information is very important for me. Now, I will say that I don't practice any immigration law, but I do know that that information is important because it does change the dynamic of what type of immigration consequences they are facing, especially based off of the criminal charges. So it's really important, the advice that I give, and I'm sure that Ms. Davis also gives to their clients, is in addition to having an attorney that specializes in criminal law, you also need to have an immigration attorney on your side as well if you're not a U.S. citizen. And it's important to have both. You can't just do a one-stop shop. Just like if you had a heart problem and a lung problem, you wouldn't want to go to a doctor that does both, like a general practitioner. You need to have somebody that specializes in that specific area, because as we all know, this immigration law is so fluid. It changes every day. So it's really important to have an expert on your side.
And I was going to say too, Attorney Chase, you remember last time we met, we said, and even if you don't know your immigration status, just tell us, hey, I don't know. I don't know, ladies, if y'all run into people who don't know what their immigration status, if you want to kind of chime in on that.
I can speak to that a little bit. Definitely agree with everything Attorney Lee and Attorney Chase said. And yes, some individuals may not even know, and I've encountered, that they have a removal order from so many years ago, because oftentimes when immigrants enter the country, they're not quite sure what's going on, what's the process. So you can find that information if you have your A number. If it's on a notice to appear, it's also referred to as the file number. You can enter that number in the EOIR case status, and it will produce information with regards to whether you've been in removal or have a prior removal order. There's also an 800 number. And also, to echo what this great panel is saying, if you are someone at risk, and so who are individuals at risk? We know clearly individuals with criminal convictions, whether you have status or are a green card holder, individuals who are undocumented at all, those who came in on the Biden I-134A, the Chen V, or the CBP-1, or those who entered in the country without being on the radar. What does that mean? You entered, you weren't at a port of entry. So these are all classes of individuals who are at risk. And so first things first, in addition to what everyone is saying, you have to be prepared. And by prepared, if you have kids, family members who rely on you, have your paperwork in order. That may include, in some cases, having a power of attorney prepared in case you're picked up. Have your documents in hand. To piggyback on what Attorney Lee said, if you are someone subject to this now expanded expedited removal, where they're going to move into the interior, and if they come into contact with someone who's been here less than 2 years and expeditiously deport you, you need to have documents that show that you've been here, if you have, longer than 2 years, which is why it's important to have your documentations. Also, and the criminal defense attorneys can speak to this, May 7th, Real ID. The Real ID Act comes into effect. People are going to need to have a Real ID compliant driver's license, and a Real ID card. In Florida, and I believe 2 other jurisdictions, when you're detained by a law enforcement officer, they can ask about your status. I'm going to rely on the criminal defense attorneys to edify a bit further. And so that's going to be important. A traffic stop is the easiest way for anyone, regardless of your immigration status, to come into contact with law enforcement. And then just a little bit with regards to the Laken Riley Act. This past week, President Donald Trump signed that bill into law. It's the very first bill the president has signed. It's named after a young nursing student who was tragically killed by an immigrant who did not have status in the country. And so that bill creates mandatory detention for theft crimes, whether you're convicted of a theft crime, whether you're accused, whether you admit. And so, so that portion, a lot of advocates do have concerns because it does touch upon, due process, because seemingly without a conviction, you can be detained, mandatorily in ICE detention until your removal proceedings are completed, which means you no longer are able to go before an immigration judge to ask for a bond. I know I hit upon a lot of different things, but
no, I thought it was good.
And Ms. Davis, I think that it's important to discuss the difference between a conviction in criminal versus a conviction in immigration, because, in Florida, we have this really weird thing where somebody can have a withhold of adjudication, meaning they're not actually, according to the criminal system, receiving a conviction. So you may get a withhold of adjudication and you're not a convicted felon. But for immigration purposes, if you receive a withhold, that is a conviction for immigration purposes. So clients need to understand that that's not going to keep them safe from being deported.
And also, any comments? Sorry.
No, I want to add something right there to what Attorney Chase just said, is that not only is the withholding considered a conviction for immigration purposes, there are certain certain controlled substances. Even if you're found not guilty, right? It could still, they have this where the ICE or the judge, the immigration judge, could use this reason to believe that you are guilty of it. So even though a jury said you are not guilty, and one of these fine legal minds were able to find get you not guilty, it depends on the circumstances, for example, that led to not guilty. They could look a little bit into it and see if it's reasonable to believe that you really did it. For example, if it was a basis of a technicality, you were driving, you had some marijuana, you were not supposed to be stopped, it was underneath the car, for example, you went to Attorney Chase, she said, listen, you went into you bridged or breached my client's rights, due process, and so we're going to throw this out. The stop was illegal, unlawful, and you threw it out on that basis, and you can still be removed, still be prevented from having immigration relief because they had a reason to believe that, you know what, you really did it. You just had a good criminal attorney who basically looked at other rights that you were entitled to, and so you could be denied. So that's one thing too.
I wanted to also add, anything in criminal court can be used against you in immigration court, from my understanding. Y'all hop in and stop me if I'm wrong. And the same witnesses, the same evidence could come in. Any statements that you make in our criminal world can also be used in immigration court. I don't know if anybody wants to speak to that, or if you have any personal experiences, and the inverse. So I know a lot of times, at least, and you ladies feel free to chime in, oftentimes with the clients in my office that have immigration holds, usually the criminal case is what triggers the immigration case. But I'm curious to know if there's anybody else with the inverse experience.
You're saying where the immigration create the criminal?
Yes. Oh, actually, I have in federal court. So I haven't done one in a long time, but I had an illegal reentry case where HSI caught a Mexican national trying to enter in through Arizona or something like that. And then that's actually what triggered a criminal. So
Okay, yes.
I've
Or
had
re-entry, for example, or even a re-entry.
a legal re-entry case. Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Let me tell you, I
Where
have a really strange thing that happened. I had a client that had applied for his immigration, like to become a US citizen, and he did the fingerprinting, and then he had this arrest from a long time ago, but he gave a false name for the arrest. But the fingerprints matched up to him. So we ended up having to do this really complicated thing where instead of saying not me, we had to say this is me, because I needed to get the case dismissed, and the immigration linked him to that case by his fingerprints. So it came about only because of the immigration process.
That's a very good point, Attorney Chase. And it leads to individuals who are lawful permanent residents and who are applying for citizenship. If you've had any law enforcement encounters, be sure to consult with an attorney concerning that, and to examine and to ask some of what you just pointed out, Attorney Chase, because for folks who've been residents for a really long time, extremely long time, before technology evolved, I'm told, but this is before our time, that you could actually get your prints done and turn them in to immigration, which I can't even imagine that type of setting, considering how things are done as far as getting your prints. But in that instance, it does occur, and sometimes it doesn't follow the person, or isn't discovered, if you will, until at that final stage of applying to be a citizen and naturalized. And I always caution people that immigration is going to go as far back as the very first immigration filing or paperwork you've ever submitted. And they're going to examine everything, in your background. So it's really important, if there's anything that's questionable, or maybe you didn't remember, disclosing something, to consult with an attorney.
did anybody else have anything that they wanted to add right there?
Well, I'd like to add that I get a lot of calls where people say to me, well, I'm a green card holder. I'm a lawful permanent resident. I'm protected. I can't be deported. It's okay. And I always tell them the immigration laws are such that you are not shielded from deportation merely by being a green card holder or a lawful permanent resident. If you have committed a crime in between the time that you are approved for your lawful permanent residence and maybe when you're applying for citizenship, we need to know what happened, right? Because a lot of people think, well, I'm okay. So when they're working with their criminal attorney, they don't bother to mention that. Like, they don't bother to mention the fact that they are a green card holder, because they were told, oh, it's okay now. It's all good. And it's not, quite honestly. So, even if you are a green card holder, you can be placed into deportation proceedings. And it's so that's something that I always want to remind people of when they say to me, oh, no, it's fine. It doesn't matter. And I'm like, it does. It absolutely matters. And it's something that we need to do a really good analysis of. If you are a green card holder and you come into contact with law enforcement or the criminal justice system in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you. Go ahead. Sorry.
Real quick, because this is very critical, in that one of the people that are at the priority of being taken in by ICE with all the raids are people who already have an outstanding removal order. And I know we talked about earlier that sometimes you don't even know whether or not you have a removal order. Here's the thing: if you have ever presented yourself, for example, if a spouse was filing for you and that was denied, maybe because they thought it was a marriage fraud, for example, and you went through this in USCIS, chances are maybe it is that they did refer your case to immigration court. So what you need to do, get to an attorney. An attorney was able to look and see whether or not you had an in absentia order, because maybe your order removed and you didn't even know. But it's very important that you, and if you had any contact whatsoever with ICE in the past, it's very critical because you are priority. The reason being, they know you're here. They know your name, they know your addresses. I know sometimes you've moved, but believe me, ICE, FBI, and by the way, FBI is now working with ICE as well. And so they can find you. And here's the thing, if you have that removal order, it's very important because you are definitely on the top of that priority list. And so even if you don't, and another thing is that you should not be driving. If you know you don't have a driver's license, please, and you don't have a lawful status, use one of the ride share systems or use, have a family member or a friend drive you. Do not take the chance because, you're definitely, that's one of the surest way, as Attorney McKinney said earlier, for you to be in contact with ICE.
That's one of the surest way you can be in contact with a criminal case as well. We get a lot of those. So thank you for highlighting that. And also thank you for kind of overemphasizing, all of you ladies, the green card holders, because I mean, I've gotten to court. I was sharing this with Attorney Chase and my client's getting ready to take a plea. And he's like, hold on, wait a minute. I got a green card. I'm like, whoa, like stop, flag on the field. You know what I mean? Because I don't know to what extent, especially now, that may impact the green card holder, but that's not my expertise either. And so I want to also recommend that if you, regardless of if you get a criminal case first that triggers immigration or immigration that triggers criminal, get in contact, retain counsel right away. And of course, if you can't afford one in the criminal side, you're entitled to a public defender. Anybody else want to add anything?
I think, a lot of important stuff has been covered by everyone. And I really appreciate us all getting here today and just having these really important discussions. And I would say that the discussion doesn't end here. And I think everybody would agree with that. And there's changes every single day. I hear it on the news every morning when I wake up. Like this morning, I heard on the news that now Trump is considering having Guantanamo Bay as a place to hold people who are being deported. So it's really important to know your rights. I think Opal really said something important in the beginning that's not only crucial for immigration, but also criminal, is like, don't speak. You may not, and I don't know about this for immigration concept, but in criminal, usually they're supposed to warn you that, you have the right to remain silent, but I don't know if those same rights apply in immigration. So if you're not sure, the best thing I can tell you is don't speak. That way you can make sure that you protect yourself, because a lot of cases, and I'm sure Attorney Davis can say the same, they're lost because you opened your mouth. So
Correct.
please make sure that you do not speak unless you have an attorney present.
And also, really fast, to your point, Attorney Chase, lying to a federal agent is a federal offense. So just don't say anything. Like, if you feel compelled to talk, the only thing you should be saying is, I would like to remain silent. I'd like for you to contact my attorney. Even if you don't have one, you're entitled to one if you're facing incarceration. But lying is a federal crime. Ask me about it because I have clients that do it. And they've been charged and indicted by the federal government. So for the sake of time, Attorney Williams, and not to cut off anybody, this is all great information. Again, the quickest way for you to follow up with one of us, I'm going to have everybody put their contact information in the comments. But I'd like for Attorney Williams, especially with your expertise and your background, if you kind of can talk to us about some of the employment immigration aspects that you're seeing, especially in light of the new administration. Oh, and can you also tell them your background too? Because I think it's important. I think it's key.
Yes, I can. So I used to work in USCIS up in headquarters in Washington, D.C. I was one of the adjudication officers at the headquarters office.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so, part of what I did was really writing and looking at policy within the agency, and working with some of the adjudicators out in the field offices. So in terms of employment-based immigration, it's in light of what's happening today, It's really important that if you are coming back into the country and you are on a non-immigrant visa, let's say you're on an H or an L, or your spouse is on an H or an L, or your children are, right? It's always important when you come back into the US to go online on the CBP website and pull your I-94 card. That tells you, and it tells a law enforcement officer if you are pulled over or if there's a raid at your work site, what your current status is here in the US. So make sure that you always have your I-94. And it's also good for you to do regardless, so that you know that you have been entered into the US properly. I've spoken with clients over the years who were accidentally entered as visitors when they should have been entered into the US with someone that had work authorization. And that presents a whole host of other problems, which we won't go into here. But you always want to make sure that you are entered into the country lawfully and in the right status. And now you want to make sure that you have a copy of that I-94 on your person. If you have your approval notice, keep a copy of your approval notice on you. That is one more piece of evidence telling law enforcement agency or telling ICE, if that is who you are encountering, what your current status is. Also, always have the number of the internal contact who handles immigration at your company. That is the person who can reach out to me as your outside counsel and start to get things moving and start to get things done should you be picked up by law enforcement. And because I'm not going to know, right? But if you have the name and number of your internal contact at your company, you always want to have that on you so that you can always reach out to them. If your company has applied for your green card for you, you always want to make sure that you have copies of those receipts on you. So if you are at the adjustment of status phase, have a copy of your adjustment of status receipt, as well as your work authorization document and your travel permission. Those documents, if you are picked up by law enforcement, will help law enforcement determine much quicker what your status is. And again, as all of my colleagues have said, don't say anything. Don't say anything. Preserve your rights. Ask to speak with an attorney, and then make that phone call when you are given that opportunity. A special note for those folks that are here as international students: always have a copy of your I-20 on you. That is the form that you got that was signed from the school that says you are attending school at a particular educational institution. The I-20s are school specific. So you always want to have a copy of your I-20 on you. You always want to have a copy of your passport with you. If you are towards the end of your time as an international student, you'll most likely have an employment authorization document. Have that on you as well. Always carry a copy or the original of your passport, right? That will tell law enforcement who you are and where you're coming from. So, the more information that they have to confirm that you are who you say you are, that you are here lawfully, that you are working for a specific company, and that you are in a specific status, hopefully will make that process. If you do in fact come in contact with law enforcement, it will make it easier, and hopefully you will go home that evening. If you are walking around and you have no evidence of who you are or what your status is, chances are you are not going to go home that night, and that is something that you do not want to deal with, right? Because then you're going to have a conversation with me. You're going to have a conversation with a person at your employer, and you're probably going to have a conversation with one of the other two immigration lawyers on screen before we can get this all sorted out and unwound for you. Also, if you are here in the US, you're here lawfully, and you have changed your address, right? People move. People buy houses, they buy condos, and then they may switch to a new apartment. If your mailing address has moved, it is incumbent upon you to fill out the form and send it into the Immigration Service. You can fill out the form online. You do not need a MyUSCIS account to do that. So make sure that you have given them your most recent address, as well as if you're here as an international student, make sure that your school has that most recent address. Make sure that your employer has that most recent address. And if you're working directly with your attorney, make sure your attorney has that most recent address. We have to be able to find you, and we have to be able to say when we're in contact with law enforcement, hey, this is my client, they live here, blah blah blah, they, you know, and they have this status, they have that status. If you don't keep us updated and informed, that makes it a little bit harder for us in order to advocate for you. So I think those are the biggies when we're talking about folks that are here and they are in status and they are with companies or they are international students.
Thank you so much for that. And then I just kind of want to go around with a couple minutes that we have left with some of your key takeaways that you have, especially in light of the last month that we just had. Do you have any key takeaways that I guess that maybe we haven't mentioned already that could serve the clients that you serve and the population of people that you reach out to?
I would say, sorry, Attorney Chase. I'm sorry, Attorney Lee. What I would say is, because this was a lot of good information. Number one, replay it in case you missed anything.
Yes.
But if you remembered nothing else and you are arrested or detained, we all share the same basic rights regardless of status, and that's remain silent. Don't sign anything without speaking to a lawyer.
And don't lie to a federal agent.
Don't lie, and don't claim to be a U.S. citizen. That is like the kiss of death. Don't do that, and don't run from law enforcement. I think the criminal defense attorneys would agree. The goal is to be calm and remain silent. Don't sign anything. Ask for a lawyer. At the first opportunity, when you're able to make a phone call, speak to your attorney, your family members, so that they can begin the process of helping you.
And the key takeaway, or something for you to remember, is that if you have any removal proceedings or have any encounter or any criminal action at all, please make sure you consult with an immigration attorney. You have to lawyer up. And if something sounds too good to be true, possibly it is. For example, if you get a call from an anonymous number claiming to be, for example, telling you that if you came in with an I-94, they could get you in the military. I had a colleague recently stated that one of her clients got that phone call that, listen, I could get you into the military, don't worry, come in. It could be ice tricking you. You could be walking right into an entrapment. Of course, our criminal attorneys know what we're talking about here. So be very, very careful. I mean, it's serious times, but if you lawyer up and get the good information like we're providing to you here, you should be able to make it out alive.
Yeah. And I think my takeaway is, if you are unsure if you have an avenue to become a lawful permanent resident, to get work authorization, reach out and have a consultation with an immigration lawyer, someone that handles immigration cases all day, every day, and heed their advice and bring questions. Bring all the things that you have heard online, bring all the things that you have heard from your friends, from your family. Now is the time to get those questions answered from someone who handles immigration cases all day, every day. Now is not the time. Now is absolutely not the time. And it never has been, but now is definitely not the time to rely on things that you have heard third, fourth, fifth party that will promise you a solution. I can almost guarantee you everything that you've heard fifth party is not true. But have a consultation with an immigration lawyer and listen and bring questions and be honest with them. And do not tell them what you think they want to hear. Tell them what your actual situation is. And if there's a way that they can help you, even better.
Thank you. And Attorney Chase, any last criminal defense takeaways? I'm sure I'll agree with all of yours. So,
I think that it's just important to know your rights and know your status. That would be the best advice that I can give. And really don't fall into law enforcement's trap, because they are trained to get you to talk. Oh, if you talk to us, we'll help you. And we always generally have this inclination to cooperate with law enforcement, but here you really can't. You can apologize and say, I'm sorry, I just can't talk with you right now. I was advised not to. And you got to be strong. Practice saying it out loud. I practice with my clients invoking their rights, because when it comes to the real deal and you're faced with that fork in the road, you got to be strong and make sure that you really are advocating. And I assure you, I've never had a client that regretted invoking their rights.
And one last thing too, be unequivocal in the invocation of your rights. Be unequivocal. Stand firm on, no, I want to remain silent. I'm requesting a lawyer. Don't go back and forth, because that gets tricky when you come up to court. With all that being said and done, thank you so much to all the attorneys that were here. I'm telling you, like I said, if I could assemble my all-star lineup, it would be each and every one of these lawyers. I'm going to include everybody's contact information in this post. And I just want to say farewell to everybody. Thank you, ladies, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.